Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Radford, and welcome to another webinar session about buying an off-plan property in Spain. Today, I'm talking to my colleague Michael, who used to work for an estate agency up in the Costa Blanca, and joined us. And what we're finding, Michael, and I suppose the feedback we're getting from the estate agents is there's not a lot of stock available, but the answer to that issue is off-plan property. Is that what you're hearing?
Exactly. So at the moment, what we're hearing is on the resale side of things, there isn't a lot of stock. There's not a lot of properties coming onto the market, which is giving a boost into the off-plan property market. So we are seeing an increase in developments and obviously then purchases in regards to the new developments that are being built in the areas.
Today, Michael and I are going to be talking about things that you should consider before you enter into an off-plan property purchase. And I'd say, Michael, one of the most important things is really to consider who's going to use it, whether it's going to be for personal use or whether it's going to be for business use, and what nationality you are. We've got some options on our website about whether to buy in the name of a company or whether to buy in your personal use. So I'd recommend that you look at those blogs we've got on our website and download the PDFs. But today, Michael, what other considerations do you think people should consider?
No, see, to start off with, one of the questions that we hope clients ask, but we also, preempt the answers to this question because it is one that affects the whole process itself, is the difference in how it would affect your budget compared to buying a resale property.
Okay.
Okay, so does it have any differences in the taxes, in the purchase costings? How would it affect compared to the resale?
That's a great point, Michael, because, for example, down in Andalusia, transfer tax on a resale property is 7%, whereas if you buy a brand new property, you're going to pay 10% VAT plus 1.2% stamp duty. Up in the Costa Blanca, what's it up there?
Up in the Costa Blanca on the resale property, we've got 10%, which is the same as the VAT on the new build properties. The only difference would be the 1.2% as well, which is added on as the tax.
Okay. So in effect, budgeting is really important. And typically what you will do once you've found an off-plan property purchase, is that you'll make stage payments. So typically you'll pay up to say 30% and then 70% at completion. And within those payments, you'll pay that 10%. And you'll only pay the stamp duty when you've actually purchased the property.
Okay.
Okay. What else are they asking us, Michael?
So another question that they ask is obviously in regards to how reputable the developers are. So we always go back to them and say, well, they don't have just one development. Check out the other developments that they've got. Check out the ones that they've previously built to see how the progress is done, the quality of the materials, and obviously the finishings to see whether it is something that you're interested in before a specific development itself that they're offering at the moment.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Check out the builder. What track record have they got? What guarantees have they put in place? And that kind of leads me on to from a legal perspective, we would look at the planning permission. We want to know if they've got planning permission already, or are they just, putting the development out there on a wing and a prayer and saying, pay me €6,000. And then once I've got 30 people who've paid me €6,000, I will then apply for planning permission. So you do get that as well. So it is important to ask up front whether that developer has got planning permission. And also, in the past we did have properties that buildings that didn't get finished. That has now, I'd say hopefully those days have come to an end, because now every developer is obliged by law to give a guarantee for all off-plan payments. Those off-plan payments are usually protected with some form of an insurance policy or a bank guarantee. So if the developer went bust during the buying process, you would get your monies back. Those guarantees typically last until the property has been finished and the license of first occupation obtained. So what about Michael? What other questions are you finding there people are asking us?
Now, other questions that we're finding up here is when a client has found a property, they like the development, they're in a position that they want to proceed. we always ask them the question of what usage are you going to give to this property to know whether it's, the best option is to purchase it in your own name or, for example, into a company name, depending if you're looking to rent the property out in the future as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So certainly, for example, for the non-EU nationals, if you're going to rent the property out and use it purely for business, then it is certainly worth looking at a company setup. But also, you've got to think about what are the costs of purchase, what are the ongoing costs, accountancy costs, and what are the costs of exiting. And it's not for everyone, so it is definitely worth taking specialist accountancy advice in that respect.
Correct. Now, another aspect, obviously, before you officially commit, is the review of the contract. Now, in regards to a resale contract with an estate agent, there is a big difference compared to what an off-plan property initial reservation contract would be.
Yeah.
So we do like to delve into this a lot more in detail to ensure that from day one, your interests are covered to make sure any aspects in the process. And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, in the stage payments, what would happen if there is a delay or not or an unpayment of one of those deposits?
Yeah, so that's kind of that's for me when I look at these off-plan contracts, that's almost the main part. What happens if you miss a payment? And this is where we kind of get to the nuts and bolts of it and find out if the developer is fair or not, or what kind of developer we're dealing with. And typically, if you do miss a payment, then nine out of 10 contracts will say that you lose all the monies that you paid up until that date. So that is where we would try and negotiate. So if you missed a payment for whatever reason, in those stage payments, the 30% that you're going to pay over a period of time, we would ask that you maybe get at least 50% of those monies back. And we try and negotiate those points. But some developers will accept a bit of negotiation, some developers will not, especially. And what I'm finding is that developers who have virtually finished their properties will not accept any negotiation at all because they know they could sell that property to someone else.
As you say, they know they can sell it to someone else. The demand's high, so they don't want to negotiate on that aspect because they can have another quick turnaround on it.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, one thing the clients do ask for us as well is what happens if the developer has a delay in finishing the property?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's so that I mean, really, the previous point about what happens if you miss a payment and who's late, and then late delivery are the key considerations in a contract, and something that if you are looking at buying property off plan, to ask the developer up front to explain their position on in that. Now, I always try and put in to those contracts a penalty going either way. So there's a penalty if you're late in a payment, but there should also be a penalty if they're late in delivery. And that could be a daily rate, or it could be that you get your money back plus legal interest. So you get all your money back plus legal interest, and then you could take a claim against the developer for any damages or financial compensation that you require. But again, it's those aren't easy points because most developers will draft their contracts and will be pretty fixed on their contracts. They'd have taken a position, hopefully a fair position, and then they're reluctant to negotiate further on those.
Yeah. Now, one of the other questions that clients do ask is obviously, on a resale property, we understand that the property may have been there for 10, 15 years. It has, a bit of wear and tear. But on an off-plan property, you expect it to be, brand new, no issues whatsoever. So what's the aspect in regards to clauses that you've seen in off-plan properties in regards to snagging issues?
Yeah. So snagging is I've actually seen some great clauses in contracts recently whereby the developer will allow you 15 or 30 days to get into the. Well, first of all, when you're notified that the development of the property you're going to buy is ready, then it's important to try and get over there, or if you can't make it, arrange for an estate agent to visit and have a good look around the property to make sure that everything is in order, the kitchen's finished, etc., and look at snagging. We can always instruct an architect on your behalf to go in there and prepare a list of snag and then to enter into negotiations or discussions with the builder to get those fixed. Um, But yeah, so snagging is a very important clause to have in the contract, as well as the 10-year insurance. So for example, if the snagging is usually small items that can be repaired, but if there was a structural issue, then the good news is that each brand new property, in order for that to be registered at the land registry, does require 10-year and a 10-year insurance policy, and that is granted. That policy is granted just before they register the individual properties at the land registry. So what actually happens, Michael, is a developer buys a plot of land, they'll apply for planning permission, they'll start building, and then they'll declare a deed describing all the properties. They'll sign that before the notary. Typically, that will have the license, the planning permission in there, and the 10-year insurance policy and the articles. Because if you're buying in a property, you're going to become a member of the community of owners, and you'll contribute towards the common areas, and basically they register at the land registry, and the land registry will then allocate a land registry number to each individual property. When you're buying off plan, usually you're just buying, a slice of the land. But when you actually get it to when the property is finished, you'll actually end up owning that individual property registered in your name with its full description.
Perfect. Now, you mentioned there in regards to being part of a community. Now, obviously, on resale properties, we know the community set up. We can see what the community fees are going to be, how often you pay them during the year. How would it work in regards to an off-plan property? Is there something that the clients would have to pay to get the community set up? What happens in that aspect?
Yeah, so a lot of off-plan, if you're buying 2-3 years in advance, a lot of developers kind of don't tend to think about this. But what we are seeing more and more of is that they will say, look, in order to incorporate the community, you'll have to pay us 500 or 600 euros. That sets up the community, and the community, when that's set up, basically all your fellow owners are instructing a lawyer stroke administrator to incorporate the company, to prepare a budget to look after the whole development, to then issue those invoices, collect those monies in, and employ people to look after the gardens, the pools, common areas, maintain lifts, lights, etc. So so yeah, that there's typically a payment up front, and then basically a monthly payment, and those monthly payments vary according to the facilities that you have. If you've got larger gardens, larger pools, then you're going to spend more on community fees.
Okay, okay. Now, what about the utilities? Setting up your water contracts, your electric contracts. How would that be different in regards to the resale option where they're already up and running?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, because clients on a resale property, we go to the notary, complete the property purchase, and they're straight in the property. Of course, you can do that with an off-plan purchase. You can go straight in there, but you might not have the water and electric connected. So what usually happens is that the developer will provide us with booklets for water and electric, and we will set up a brand new contract with the local water and electric companies, and typically that can take 2 to 3 weeks. So it could be 2 to 3 weeks before you actually are able to put the lights on over the kitchen and cook yourself a meal.
It's not good if you're trying to get into the property straight away.
No, I mean a lot of clients come over, will go into the property, they'll order their furniture package, get it cleaned up, and start to get it ready. But they appreciate that the water and electric
Yeah.
won't be on right from from
No.
from, from day one. Yeah.
Now, the last question we have here is one that a lot of people do ask, and with the new changes in regulations that have come into play lately, is a very interesting one. It's in regards to the holiday rentals. Now, how would we know if a holiday rental is allowed in an off-plan property?
Yeah. So basically, as a result of legislation in 2019, communities can restrict holiday rentals, but by and large, brand new communities will not restrict holiday rentals. So and of course, if you want to rent it out, then you should be asking the developer if holiday rentals will be restricted. So you've got that local community issue, but then we would have to check whether the town hall have restricted holiday rentals as well, because um, as the housing stock in Spain comes under pressure, more town halls are restricting holiday rentals. So that's something that you've got to speak to the agent about, and of course your lawyer. But that's something we would check for you up front, and then we could, well, after completion, register the property with the tourist registry for you.
Perfect, perfect. Now, this is something that we would recommend anyway, whether you're purchasing off plan, whether you're purchasing a resale property, but just wanted to get a little bit of insight into why we recommend this aspect. And it's in regards to putting in place a Spanish will after you've completed on the purchase of the property.
Yeah, good point. So we would always recommend a Spanish will for Spanish assets, and then if you're, if you, depending on where you're from, have a your home will dealing with your home asset. So home will say I leave all my this will deals with all my assets except those located in Spain, and you have your Spanish will dealing with the Spanish assets here. It makes life much easier and quicker to administer the state when the owners pass on. So, Spanish will, Spanish assets, and if you update your home will, just remember to refer to the Spanish one, because a lot of the first clause of a will typically is I revoke all former wills. So it'd be I revoke all former wills except my Spanish will dated X.
Perfect, perfect. Well, hopefully, this covers the main aspects of the off-plan purchase. There are obviously other questions that we get from time to time, a little bit more in details, but the main aspects and the main questions that we do get are the main general ones that we've touched on here.
Well, that's great, Michael. Thanks for those questions. And also, everyone who's listening and watching, look at our website. If you can go into the legal advice downloads, the top right hand corner of our website, where you've got useful information, and you can download. Basically, we've got an Excel spreadsheet there with all the costs of buying off-plan property in most of the most popular regions across Spain, and also for the resale properties. But yeah, if you're interested in buying an off-plan property, please contact us. We'll be happy to help you on the legals, and we can talk to you about ownership structure beforehand, and enjoy the process. And remember to ask the developer those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.